When you stand up to speak, the audience has one key question in mind. Who are you? They want to know why they should bother listening to you. And if you don't answer that question in a compelling way, people will not listen. Instead, they'll be thinking about what they're having for dinner. They'll be having a glance at their phone. The last thing they'll be doing is paying attention to you. But today, we're going to fix that because I'm going to share how you can tell your personal story in business presentations in a compelling way. My name's Kyle Murter. I'm a public speaking coach, champion, and author. And this is a video series where we're looking at the 3 stories that you need in business presentations. So if you do pitches, if you speak at networking events, conferences, this is ideal for you because you need these 3 stories whether you know it or not. Let's dive in to your story now. So it's important for you to understand how we're going to structure your story. And the way we're going to structure it is through using the 3 C's of compelling storytelling. And they are as follows: conflict, crossroads, change. These 3 C's are visible in any great story. In your favorite films, in your favorite books, in your favorite TV shows, these three C's will be there. They are critical if you want to have people hanging on every word of your story. So I'm going to talk you through each of these, and I'll give you an example as we go of my own story and how I got into presentation skills, for example, to give you a clear idea of exactly how this can be used in the real world. So conflict. Why do you need conflict? If you don't have it, your story's pretty boring. That's the simple answer, because the conflict, the obstacle, creates that question of, okay, how did this individual overcome that obstacle? Did they overcome that obstacle? That is the question that is posed in your audience's mind when there is a problem, when there is a challenge, when there is conflict. Think about it. If Harry Potter had just had a great time at Hogwarts, it wouldn't be very interesting, would it? No, it's because of Voldemort and his weird nose. It's because of that we are interested to know what those 7 years at Hogwarts were like. And that's why we keep reading the books, keep watching the films. Your story needs to have conflict of some kind as well. And usually when we're in a business presentation, the story that we want to tell is how we got into this business, how we started this business, how we got to this stage in our career. And what you've got to ask yourself is, in that journey, what conflict did you face along the way? Now, the conflict could be something completely external. It could be COVID. It could be changing markets. It could be that you had a really terrible boss who made you feel worthless. Or maybe you were in a job, but you just felt like a number. You didn't feel like you were making an impact. It could be something like that. Or alternatively, the conflict could be internal. It could be a mental health struggle, anxiety, depression, imposter syndrome. All of those things maybe created a barrier for you, an obstacle in your path that you had to learn to overcome. But you've got to have conflict. So let me give you an example of my story and the conflict I faced in becoming a presentation skills coach. So I got into this role by actually being terrible at speaking. My first presentation was an absolute disaster. It was diabolical. I was at a meeting where people were practicing impromptu speaking, so like speaking off the cuff. And the way it would work is you would be asked a random question out of the blue, it could be on anything, and you had to immediately stand up and then deliver a 2-minute speech on that question. And my first ever question was this: Kyle, if a zombie apocalypse happened in Scotland, where would you go? So I'm thinking to myself, what the is this? You know? But anyway, my heart was racing. I'm sweating from places I didn't know I could sweat from. I get up there, I look out at this crowd of about 20 people staring at me, and you know what I say? The pub. And then I sit back down. And that was my first ever presentation. Could only say 2 words. So I'm going to stop the story there. That was my conflict. My conflict was being a terrible speaker. I stood up, I said 2 words, I felt really embarrassed, and I sat back down because of my nerves, because they overwhelmed me. That was the obstacle that I had to face and had to overcome. So have a think about your life, about your journey. What main obstacle did you face in your path to getting where you are now? This is how we tell compelling stories. We don't talk about CVs, we talk about challenges. This is the difference. So that's conflict. The next part of your story is the crossroads moment. In the movie The Matrix, the main character Neo is given a choice. He can either take the blue pill or the red pill. Now the blue pill represents him running away from his conflict, not facing it, whereas the red pill represents him running towards it and taking it on. And in your story, you need to have this sort of crossroad moment as well, where you have to make a key decision about what direction you take in life, whether you take that blue pill or that red pill. Not advocating drugs, I should point out. But we all do have that moment. We all do have that decision that we need to make, which is critical, which determines the path we go on life. And if you can articulate that to the audience, it's a very relatable moment. It's something that they can connect to. And that's why we want to share it, so we can build a connection with them, but also so that we can explain how we began our journey to overcoming the conflict. So if we go back to my story, this is how it played out for me. And when I sat back down, I felt really ashamed because I'd let the pressure, the anxiety I was feeling get to me so much that I had just crumbled in front of all of those people. So as I sat down there, I felt like I had a decision I had to make. I could either run away and hide from speaking opportunities like I had for most of my life, or I could try and get better. I could try and improve as a speaker. And I decided to take that second option. So that's my crossroad moment. And as you see, it doesn't have to go on for a long period of time. You just have to explain when that decision took place, what the turning point was in your story. So you do have one. Have a think. What was the crossroad moment for you? When did you decide to take that red pill instead of that blue pill? Final C is change. And this is about showing your transformation after facing your conflict. And a movie that really shows this clearly is A Wonderful Life. And if you haven't seen this film, I'm going to give you the spoilers now because it's been out for about 80 years, so you've had plenty of time. Basically, in this movie, there's a main character called George Bailey, and he is a very ungrateful man. He has a great family, a great job, a great community, and he hates all of it. He hates his job. He's sick of his family. He can't be bothered with his community. And it's so bad that one day he wishes he wasn't even born. And it so happens that in this movie, there is an angel in heaven who's listening in. And he grants George's wish and makes it as if he was never born. And then from heaven, George is able to witness how his family, how his community, how his business suffers in his absence. And guess what? It makes George very grateful for his life and makes him want to have his life back, makes him wish that he was, in fact, born. And then when he does return to Earth, there's a transformation, there's a change. He is grateful, he loves his family, he appreciates his business, and he loves the support of his community. That is a clear transformation in his character. And we call this in storytelling a character's arc. Where the character starts should not be the same place that the character ends. There needs to be some form of evolution in terms of who they are and what they have learned. And we need to see the same thing in your story too. There needs to be a clear distinction from where you were facing that conflict, where it controlled you, to where you are now, in terms of how things have changed as a result of overcoming it. So I'll give you an example with my story once again. So with that decision, every day I did something to try and improve my speaking. I would go on YouTube and watch great speakers. I'd listen to audiobooks about the topic. I'd go back to those meetings and do more of those random questions as speeches. And slowly over many months, I started to lose that fear and actually started to enjoy speaking. Now, 7 years on from that first presentation, I'm now a European champion of public speaking. I've wrote a 5-star book on the topic, and I've helped thousands of people like you overcome that fear and deliver compelling presentations. So for me, the key change was going from being very anxious and terrified at speaking, so much so that I only said 2 words, to actually enjoying my speaking and having the success that I've had in my career as a result. And you need to show the change in your story as well, how things have improved for you, how you have evolved. And you can, of course, use this as an opportunity to create a bit of credibility too. Share things that you've achieved, accolades, if it is related to your job and what you're talking about with the audience in this particular presentation. But above all, show that transformation. So hopefully you can see that by opening up to the audience and sharing your conflict, your crossroads, and your change, you're able to create a much deeper connection with them. They gain a better understanding of who you are. And as a result, they're able to connect with you and think, this guy or this girl, she or he's like me. They understand me, they get me, I can relate to them. And when people can relate to you, they're more likely to listen to you. And as a result, they're more likely to take action on your words as well. Thank you very much for watching today. Please subscribe to the channel if you would like to see the other stories that you need to be sharing in business presentations. Next week, we're going to talk about how to share your company's story. Of course, if you want to go back to the previous video about the 3 stories you need to be sharing in business presentations, you can access that here. And above all, you'll get the next one next week. And of course, if you're in the future, it's probably already on the channel. Either way, subscribe, gently tap the bell. You don't have to smash it, just gently tap it, and you'll be kept up to date with this content. But above all, I wish you the very best with your next presentation, and make sure you share your story in a compelling way.